the downward look away with a slight head shake is just, it's like my father hugging me and telling me he's proud.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles, you bugger. My name's John. His name is Andy. Once again, it's another rap bandit fiending at I can't stand it. Want to be down with the day glow? Knocking on my door saying, hey, yo, yo. Knocking on my door saying, hey, yo, yo. I've got a funky new tune with a fly banjo. More on that later. But first, we have a tune to listen to. Goddamn classic. We got a tune to listen to from Andy. What have you got for us today?
We are going to continue on that 90s kick, and I'm going to give you a band called Letters to Cleo. First of all, does that name ring any bells?
Not at all.
Okay, excellent. Well, the track is called Here and Now by Letters to Cleo. So I would love to hear and know what you think of Here and Now. So please go off, give it a listen, and come back. I love the pained look on your face. It's the only thing keeping me going back for more. So please go off, give this thing a go. Come back and let me know your thoughts.
So,
Just living on a Sunday morning, got my toast and tea and a woman. I just thought, think about other things to get and keep getting. Never enough, never ending. I just thought, think about.
okay, good start. So you have that sort of angelic face girl in bunches with a sweet voice, singing over a guitar that's kind of a bit sort of jangly, but not sort of British jangly, American jangly. And then comes the drum fill, which classic. This all feels 90s, and it feels like that sort of slower drum fill, which used to be there, and the toms of a certain tone, which that puts it there. And then you get the jar of eels, all textbook stuff. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, this feels like 90s. We're getting a lot of nostalgia here from Andy. Bless him. And it feels, yeah, sort of like indie rock. Like the American version, there was a lot of British female-led indie bands, late 80s, early 90s. Not heard of these guys, though.
Just living on a Sunday morning, got my toast and tea and a woman. I just thought, think
Well, it could be an absolute tit here, because I think she said something about just thinking about Sunday morning, get my toast and tea, which couldn't be more British. So, no, they can't be. They can't.
about other things to get and keep getting. Never enough, never ending. I just thought I'd think about the comfort of another job rise above the sky, but could never find another challenge of an acquisition. And the here and now, here and now.
Okay. So we got that again, very classic 90s sound, that sort of slightly slowing down the tempo, big expanded chords, and she sings slowly. And then she went into we were at some sort of cattle auction. Very strange. And then we celebrated all that by releasing a Brazilian tree frog out of somebody's sweaty fist. Again, classic 90s.
got much to think of.
We're obviously got a classic 90s. You only go down so you can crash back in again. Speaking of which, did she just say giving it to everybody but your mother? Because that is a very different sort of song. It's funny because I was just talking about quiet then loud again. And that's definitely a Black Francis kind of lyric. Let me just
Yourself in color, giving it to everybody but your mother, and
wow.
you got much to think about. Knowing how you went there for treason, never justified, never reason.
It's all right. I just like the foot coming down just to help us if we didn't quite know that it was coming back in. Great.
You got much to think about.
See that? That was quite a catchy little tune. It was pleasant. I never heard of these guys. I never heard this song. I'm wondering if it was a hit in the States, but maybe not over here. That sort of quick fire sort of delivery that whatever how she's saying, you got no chance of understanding it. You hear it on the radio or whatever. It may be impressive, but you're not going to sing along to it, are you? Which could be hindering the popularity of this song, because it's pleasant enough. I mean, again, nothing shocking, but really nice. She had a bit of charisma about her as well. Yeah, it felt nostalgic. I mean, everyone's bouncing around it. Stupid backwards cap. Yeah, a decent enough song. Yeah, what's not to like? Let's find out some more. Let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, so you have returned. Please let us know your thoughts on Letters to Cleo in this track Here and Now.
Okay, so this track opens with yet another hit of nostalgia. We get the sweet-faced girl in bunches singing over a sort of jangly guitar, but not UK jangly, American jangly.
Of course.
There is a difference. Cue several smacks on the toms, which have that certain the tune in a certain way. It has that sort of, I want to say not an empty sound, but it's the particular sound that you recognise. We get a door knocking bass, and then a jar of eels, textbook stuff. So in the UK in the late 80s and early 90s, there were several, I wouldn't say a plethora, but there were several female fronted, at least, alt stroke indie bands, probably more indie than alt, where angelic tones, vocal tones, sort of contrasted with either distorted or heavily affected guitars. And that was quite a big thing in this country. To a greater or lesser extent, I think straight away they're like Primitives, Sundays, Cardigans, I guess, Sleeper, etc. None of them were quite as weighty as something like Polly Jean, Miss Harvey. And this sounds like the transatlantic equivalent, and it's somewhere closer to Belly more than the Breeders. So yeah, interesting stuff. I presume it's 90s as well. So the lyrics that I do catch seem to outline the mundanity of life. Tea and toast on a Sunday morning, which, to be fair, does sound very British.
Doesn't it? It
She
wasn't
also
exactly
repeat
shrimp and grits on a Sunday morning.
no, even if they're pulling off the back of Al Green. She also repeats the line, I just thought I'd think about quite a few times, which is an interesting sort of into various thoughts. The vocalist herself, she has a very she has a bit of charisma and does this very nice, bright, airy delivery. Um, and she fair scurries through a line at the end of the verse, but this is only a mere taster for what's to come. So then the tempo slows down to stretch out a couple of lines where she's singing through. And I guess this is perhaps indicating some sort of ponderance. And then all of a sudden, we're at a livestock auction and she's selling off some Texas Longhorns. I mean, really, I blame the Chili Peppers for this sort of vocal nonsense.
Ah,
Give it away, give it away, give it away now. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's very strange. So then the title is sung in a normal fashion twice, which triggers the release of a Brazilian tree frog from someone's sweaty fist. Again, textbook stuff, and this is celebrated with a classic fractured 90s drum fill that sounds like the hits are coming in through the post rather than down someone's arm. Two. It's great because it was a thing as well. It really was. So now the lens of concentration turns as she sings, You've got much to think about, rather than herself. I don't really know what else is going on here. Presumably it's regarding what's coming up next in the cattle auction. And we get some more bidding action in between the title lines. The music drops down, and we all know that's for one reason only. This must be the 90s. As we admire a couple of palms full of salamanders, I think. Again, why not? The guitarist, the fucking budget in the 90s for music videos was stupid. It really was. Even for this minor stuff. The guitarist gives a little wiggle as last note as the singer croakily sings something about giving it to everybody but your mother. I didn't think it was that kind of song. We're definitely straying into Black Francis territory here with those sort of lyrics. And hence the loud, quiet bit as well.
yeah.
Back comes the music with a bang. And they very helpfully put a big close-up of a foot stomping down just in case you missed it, which I thought was really helpful. The whole gang bounce of energy. I mean, to be fair, she's been bouncing every time you like the close-up of her sweet face. She's on a trampoline or something. And we cycle through the chorus. And this time the bass suddenly finds the other half of his fretboard. And up he goes for a Peter Hook cameo up there at the top. After a couple of turns around that, we get this final heavy chord to fade out. So yeah, this was like another primo example sort of song. Of other stuff, as it were. So not like a standout tune, but just a really nice, catchy tune. I never heard this. I don't know if this is big enough in the UK, but I imagine this would have gone down a treat with certain section of the US of A. It's kind of on the lighter side of things, but still quite sort of poppy, alternative side. It's not. Again, it's not grunge, it's something else, which is always a relief from the other stuff that we had forced onto us. But it's not, sickly poppy. It's not fucking Avril Lavigne or something like
Right.
that. It's still really decent. So yeah, I enjoyed this. I thought it was just, lovely little tune.
Cool. Yeah, that's about how I feel about it too. It was just one of those one-hit wonders from my childhood. I remember the video.
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of fits that niche. Yeah, Letters to Cleo. They're an American alternative rock band originating from Boston, Massachusetts. The massholes. The band's original members consisted of Kay Hanley, lead vocals, rhythm guitar, Greg McKenna, lead guitar, backing vocals, Michael Eisenstein, rhythm guitar, keyboards, backing vocals, Stacy Jones on drums, percussion, and Scott Riebling bass backing vocals. Later, Tom Polchi and Joe Klompus would join the band, replacing Jones and Riebling, respectively. Guitarist Greg McKenna and singer Kay Hanley formed the band Letters to Cleo in 1990. The band was initially called Rebecca Lulu, with Ted Boove on guitar and Ted Garland on drums. That should say Tad Boove and Ted Garland on drums, with several musicians filling in on bass. In its early phase, the band enlisted various guest players, including a brief period with Abe Laborel Jr. as drummer in 1993. The band released a 45 single of Here and Now featuring Laborel on drums with Brian Karp on bass. The band's definitive lineup of Hanley, McKenna, Eisenstein, Stacy Jones, and Scott Riebling on bass was established in 94. The band changed its name to Letters to Cleo in 1990. The name Letters to Cleo is a reference to Hanley's childhood pen pal. They spent their summers together in Canada, and they wrote each other letters to keep in touch over a 10-year period. At some point, Cleo moved without giving Hanley her new mailing address, and Hanley's letters to Cleo were returned to sender. Hanley rediscovered a box of these letters during a band naming process, and the band adopted the name. Hanley called it the least crappy of all the names they had come up with at the time. Letters to Cleo played gigs in several Boston clubs, including TT the Bear's Place and the Rathskeller. The band could not seem to find success and was close to breaking up when it recorded their first full-length album, Aurora Borealis. Hanley had already started another band on the side at the time. The album was released on Cherry Disc Records, a Boston-based independent record label, in 1993. The album received extensive airplay around the New England area. In 1994, the Billboard published a review of the album, and the next day the band played a much-hyped show at South by Southwest in Austin, which made several recording labels very interested in signing the band. Letters to Cleo decided to sign a record label deal with Giant Records, which was a Warner Brothers subsidiary, in 1994. And it re-released Aurora Borealis worldwide in 1995. Soon after signing the deal, their new record label was asked to compile a soundtrack for Melrose Place, and the record label decided to put Here and Now on that. Here and Now was an instant hit, peaking at number 56 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 10 on the Modern Rock Tracks chart. Trouser Press wrote that the record's airy sonics, Kay Hanley's soaring vocals, and the band's smart pop rock songwriting make for a solid, if not especially challenging, effort. On August 1st, 1995, Letters to Cleo released a follow-up album, Wholesale Meats and Fish. Its release was followed by extensive tours with Our Lady Peace, Sponge, Ned's Atomic Dustbin, and others. The single Awake achieved moderate rotation on alternative radio. The band also recorded a cover of the Cars song Dangerous Type for the major motion picture The Cult. In 1997, Stacy Jones left the band to join Veruca Salt and was replaced by Tim Polchi. That same year, the band released their third album, Go! Exclamation point, obviously inferred with my delivery there. After a short tour, Polchi left the band and was replaced by drummer Jason Sutter. In late 1997, Letters to Cleo parted ways with their record label Giant/Revolution. 1998 saw the release of their early demos and B-sides in the form of the Sister album, released originally by Wicked Disc. Letters to Cleo appeared in the 1995 film 10 Things I Hate About You, rest in peace Heath Ledger, as a favorite band of the character portrayed by Julia Stiles. They contributed 4 songs to the soundtrack of that film, which included a Cheap Trick cover, I Want You to Want Me, and a Nick Lowe and Ian Gombe cover, Cruel to Be Kind. Also included were 2 original songs, Come On and Co-Pilot. During that same year, the band opened for Cheap Trick at the Paradise Club in Boston. The band played its final show on the 4th of May, 2000, a benefit for their friend and longtime local supporter, Mikey D. They announced their disbandment the following month. However, in 2008, they went on a reunion tour, and again in 2016. As of 2022, the group has been playing reunion shows periodically in the Northeast and California. The lineup includes both Stacey Jones and Tim Polche, alternating playing drums show to show, along with Kay Hanley, Michael Eisenstein, Greg McKenna, and Joe Klompus. Michael Eisenstein has been doing session work and touring work for many artists, including Canadian band Our Lady Peace and Lisa Loeb. He is a producer and an engineer. Hanley and Eisenstein married in the late 90s and have two children, Zoe Mabel and Henry Aaron, named, of course, after the legendary Baseball Hall of Famer. However, they split in 2010. Drummer Stacey Jones went on to form American Hi-Fi with fellow Boston musicians Drew Parsons, Jamie Aronson, and Brian Nolan. In addition to being the musical director and drummer for Miley Cyrus, Jones is also the musical director for Life of Dylan. Previous gigs also include playing drums for Matchbox 20, Madonna, Dia Frampton, Veruca Salt, Avril Lavigne, Ariana Grande, Joan Jett, Against Me, the Jonas Brothers, the Flaming Lips, Lily Allen, Billy Ray Cyrus, Sheryl Crow, Cobra Starship, Amy Mann, The Cab, Hey Monday, Butch Walker, and I can't believe I've waited till now to say this, but and more. I probably could have cut 10 bands out of that and said and more. But it does go to show you what a weird gamut of artists they've worked with. That's just all over the place. Scott Riebling went into the production side of music. He's produced work for the Von Bondies, Cobra Starship, and Fall Out Boy. Riebling resides in Massachusetts. Co-founding member Greg McKenna is playing live with his new band City Rivals. McKenna resides in Dorchester, Massachusetts, and Tom Polche played with several prominent Boston-based bands and is a producer and an engineer and lives in California. So, let's jump into these lyrics. Just living on a Sunday morning, got my toast and tea and I'm warm, and I just thought I'd think about all the things to get and keep getting. Never enough, not enough, and never ending. I just thought I'd think about just living on a Sunday morning, got my toast and tea and I'm warm, and I just thought I'd think about all the things to get and keep getting. Never enough, not enough, and never ending. I just thought I'd think about, and it might be, the comfort of a knowledge of a rise above the sky, but could never parallel the challenge of an acquisition in the here and now, here and now. Give it to everybody but your mother. You've got much to think about, soaring higher with every treason, never justify, never reason. You've got much to think about, and it might be the comfort of a knowledge of a rise above the sky, but could never parallel the challenge of an acquisition in the here and now, here and now. The comfort of a knowledge of a rise above the sky, but could never parallel the challenge of an acquisition in the here and now, here and now. And it might be giving it to everybody but your mother. You've got much to think about, soaring higher with every treason, never justify, never reason. You've got much to think about. It might be the comfort of a knowledge of a rise above the sky, but could never parallel the challenge of an acquisition in the here and now, here and now. The comfort of a knowledge of a rise above the sky, but can never parallel the challenge of an acquisition in the here and now, here and now. And it might be a comfort of a knowledge of a rise above the sky, but could never parallel the challenge of an acquisition in the here and now, here and now. And it might. So, back in 1993, Laura Cleo wrote in an article on the then up-and-coming band for Lollipop magazine. She wrote, "Letters to Cleo's first full-length CD leaves you distracted, a little confused, and yet it remains comfortable, accessible. Hanley's vocals travel from innocent childlike tenderness to raw rage and back again without missing a beat. And then there's the hard-hitting, rapid-fire delivery of Here and Now." You were a huge fan of that. And I See. Somehow the 10 songs on Aurora Borealis flow through the ever-changing vocal elements as well as variations between serious funk, folk, a poppy dance groove, psychedelia, Nirvana-esque distortion, and even a sort of twangy hoedown thang. Through it all, all the style changes, all the overlapping, Letters to Cleo maintains a rare sort of anti-commercial grace, adding, it's this distinct sound that transcends categorization by incorporating so many different styles at once that has made LTC, Letters to Cleo, such a popular live act over the past year or so. It's this and Hanley's supremely confident stage presence, which once again is rife with juxtaposition. She romps around the stage with a nonchalant air that suggests she's not quite sure just how she got there, and meanwhile delivers most honest and heartfelt lyrics in a voice technically superior to most in Boston. In addition, the appealing contradictory nature of Letters to Cleo isn't hurt by the fact that a petite and yet immensely powerful woman is fronting an otherwise all-male band. Reflecting back on the discovery of this album and track, Medium's Emma Chrisley would write an article titled, Why Was This Band Not a Bigger Deal? Published last year, in which she said, and I just thought this was interesting because you have one article written just as this band is kind of becoming popular in the New England area, and this written by a young lady who didn't discover this band if not for old CD collections possessed by their parents. So I'll expand on what she said. Around the time we got a family computer for the living room, we went one by one through all the CDs in the house and imported them onto iTunes. This was how I learned about 80s new wave, the discography of U2, and a style of 90s alternative you might call college radio, but I always called anything that sounds like it would be in the 1995 movie Empire Records. Released sometime in 1993, but then re-released in 1994, songs from this album were featured in episodes of Daria and Melrose Place, which leaves me deeply confused why I haven't heard more about this band or the album outside of it being in my living room CD cabinet. The album and this band sound so specifically of this time in 90s alternative, if I may say so, given that I wasn't alive to experience it firsthand. But music like this feels like it keeps the spirit of the time in music like a time capsule for those of us looking back. And while it feels uncool to like your parents' music, I'm grateful that I was given such a strong musical foundation, all in that dark brown wooden CD cabinet. And I swear to God, my dad kept all his records in this old wooden cabinet that had this odd, like specific smell to it that I can still think of in my head whenever I open those old records. So even though I was 12, 13 years old, and this girl is kind of, joking tongue in cheek about how uncool I lived this experience, though not through the CD spectrum, but through the digging through the old records spectrum. So I had a similar experience just 15 years before her or whatever. So it just made me smile and took me back to combing through my parents' old stuff. But go on, Joe.
All thoughts. So firstly, about this song, I did sound the action. I forgot to say that rapid delivery, although impressive when you think about it, isn't very commercially savvy because you'd struggle to sing along with it. So that sort of would harm it commercially, but people would admire it, but it wouldn't stick in the head because you go, whatever.
A prime example of this, John, is REM. It's the end of the world. And everybody just fucking
no burst sign. Yes.
Spits out syllables until they, land on the last line there. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I'm also backwards cap. That's all I'm going to say. It's interesting. The band name, it's a nice story, but it is a shitty band name. And they said it was the best of a bad bunch. I mean, what were the other band names? I Heart Hitler? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say Letters to Adolf might have been their other option. They're like,
and also Melrose Place. Now, I have very distant memories of Melrose Place, only because I remember watching it because Tracy Bloody Lords was in it. Looking incredibly insane all the time, and that sort of just struck me as I had a Sonic Youth T-shirt which had a picture of Tracy Lords with a halo above her, and it was just one of my favorite T-shirts ever. But yeah, so that, and the hi-fi cabinet. So my father had one which was hewn from a small forest in the 1960s. Everything was wooden, and you had the sliding fascia of each section, so it will go up and into itself to
Yeah.
reveal the the radio band, the amplifier band. It had tape reel at the bottom section, and then a record player at the top. No cassette, that was too modern, and
Yeah.
the speakers were the size of a 7-year-old child, um, and they were covered with this crisscross sort of cheesecloth cord type thing that was yellow and brown. Yes, and I can still remember the smell of that cabinet as well. Unbelievable, unbelievable.
Exactly. Exactly. It was like my dad smelled like the wood itself with a hint of a bag of dope he bought in 1966. Just old musty weed and mahogany is what all that whole cabinetry smelled like. Uh it's super nostalgic, and it's heartening to hear you, who, the disparity between the gulf between your age and mine is probably similar to mine, and this young woman who's written this, and we've all three from different generations experienced something similar to one another. There's something that's warming in that, you know what I mean? And I spoke in a previous episode about acquisition, and here's her example of it, and I've talked about mine, and you've talked about yours, and it's just a wonderful thing. It really
Yeah,
is that we pass
definitely.
this down and along to one another, and that's kind of a part of the spirit of this channel too. So great stuff, man. Super. I'm glad you like the song. I didn't expect you to be like fucking bowled over by it, but it just rings 90s. So I thought I would bring it to the channel and catch your thoughts on it. So thanks for giving it a spin, man. I appreciate your time.
Not at all, not at all.
Excellent. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of Letters to Cleo and the song Here and Now. If you're of a certain age and this was wildly popular in the 90s when you were youthful and listening to major radio stations and MTV and all that shit, drop your thoughts down below. If there's any other stuff by these guys or similar bands akin to them that we should check out on this channel, please feel free to let us know. Frankly, any suggestion. It doesn't need to fit into any confines. We're not about that life. So if you have anything that in mind that you'd like us to check out, please feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll collate them on our ever-growing list for future Friday episodes. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully, John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.